All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. All the tabs are ready and open. I've already checked them. No worries. We have to make sure that we're live on Rumble. I see chat is working, but I'm getting the little thing at the bottom of the video itself. Please wait till your video finishes processing. I'm hoping that doesn't mean any glitches. We'll check. We'll make sure. By the way, pinned at the top of chat on YouTube and also in the description on both platforms, YouTube and Rumble. Keep in mind, we are still helping the Greeks to repair their country in Pixel Planet. Also, it looks like we're annexing California. So, Clankdom Rising on Pixel Planet. I think the Turkish streamers have officially absconded. They got tired of the game and a bunch of people got banned or something. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. So let's make sure we're live on Rumble. Yes, indeed, we are. Excellent. It's a nice, warm, but rainy day at the moment. I'm feeling high energy. It helps when you have these, of course. I'm on my second one. Haha. There's more in the background. The hyper-caffeinated bat over there. He's hanging out with Jesus. I should have something on the pumpkin next to him too. So there's it's like the two thieves, that were crucified with Jesus Christ, I suppose. Anyway, we'll get right into the news. Just a second here. All right. First and foremost, this is a Bill Maher post. This is with Neil deGrasse Tyson, weighing in on nuclear war. And I thought that it was funny as fuck because you should watch the clip itself. I didn't bother to archive it because it is a video. You should watch it for yourself. And the things that he's saying are provably untrue, number one. Number two are completely batshit. The idea is that nuclear war is not really that bad. Don't worry, people. Modern nuclear weapons don't lead to as much fallout as atomic weapons do. Fact check, partially true. Modern nuclear weapons, because they use secondary material for fission purposes, as opposed to simply like the older atomic designs, you're taking an enriched uranium core, it's near criticality, and you compress it, or you have a sort of a two-part system and you fire a piece of uranium into another part, causing criticality. By the way, atomic and nuclear weapons do actually exist. Apparently, there are some people that deny that fact. We've got plenty of video footage of them blowing up, just to be clear. That being said, there is fallout from hydrogen bombs. It may not be as much as far as the blast radius. If you compare that to the amount of fallout, they will burn cleaner. That does not mean that there is not fallout from that primary ignition. Now, that's number one. Number two, he tries to compare it to the firebombing of Japan. Now, this comparison is actually apt if you're talking about older scale atomic weapons. Yes, it is true. Firebombing in Tokyo and other parts of Japan, creating a firestorm by creating a literal ring of fire, a la Johnny Cash, I guess. Yes, it took more lives than the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Here's the problem. You've got one plane with a nuclear weapon on it, 10 megatons or something. That's going to cause a lot more death than a firebombing will. You're trying to compare the firebombing of Tokyo, heavily populated, several million people, I think, were living in there at peak anyway during World War II, creating a firestorm. You're trying to compare that and the thousands of planes involved with older atomic weapons in the kiloton range. That's not what we're dealing with today. In a tactical nuclear deployment situation, which could lead to an all-out nuclear war, you're talking about several billion deaths, just to be clear. You're talking about several billion more thereafter. I'm surprised that Tyson wasn't questioned. Why did Maher not question him on the after effects of the destabilization after a nuclear war? Okay, let's take radiation entirely off the table. Let's pretend that what he's saying with regards to fallout is true, and it's not. Let's say fallout is, after a year or so, it's pretty much gone away. Much of it will, not all of it. You will still have more bone cancer cases for about 100 years to come thereafter. What about cholera? What about typhus? What about malaria and all of these other things? We have suppressed a lot of diseases that we would not be able to properly suppress in the wake of a nuclear war. Medical infrastructure would break down, et cetera, et cetera. There would be famine. People who are starving are more susceptible to tuberculosis. I'm finding it funny that someone who I guess has a PhD is actually involved in science can make such elementary errors with regards to nuclear warfare. I guess he doesn't understand history in the military sense, doesn't understand epidemiology. That much is quite clear. He should have been pressed more on this. Marr was awestruck. He's like, oh, nuclear war wouldn't be that bad. Please explain more to me. You should have pushed even fucking harder, because Neil deGrasse Tyson is literally full of shit when it comes to this. Symbolic belief, any realistic chance for Doug Mastriano? Possible, but not likely, just to be clear. Drennan, bring back the NPC pumpkin. I would, but there are no white pumpkins in the country. There aren't any of the big pumpkins either. You can only get these little ones and gourds. Like US-sized pumpkins don't exist much in the Netherlands. Long Dong John, were the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombings justified in your opinion? No. I oppose the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were not justified. To be clear, they were unjustifiable enough that Truman decided to tamp down on what was originally a military order that he may not have even given at the time, to say, okay, further bombings, I have to greenlight them explicitly. You're no longer allowed to simply drop atomic weapons on Japan. They were not justified. Japan was completely corralled, completely cut off from the world. It was possible to use a starve them out tactic. The idea of this legendary Japanese resilience, well, we will die for the emperor, we'll kill ourselves for the emperor. Then why did you let the emperor stay on from a former wartime state? Why did you decide to do that? There was no domestic industry anymore. Most of the people in Japan were never militarized. They were sitting there, they were farming turnips and radishes and shit like that. I oppose it. I think it's a blot on our country. By the way, if nuclear or atomic weapons are deployed by the Russians, I'll deplore that too. And so should everybody else. I have a feeling if Putin's crazy enough to do that, he'll end up getting assassinated. Sebastian Monroe, got another ad from Wisconsin Dems. They're mostly about abortion or radicals. Are boomers unaware that we 90s kids know that radical means cool? Yeah, rad, man. It's tubular. Mike K. Sticks, New York Governor Candidates Forum, WPIX, October 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Interesting. Yeah, Darth Tater telling me it is a bad take. Yes, the idea of killing several 100,000 Japanese people was perfectly rational, considering their military had been completely defeated. They had the Allies had total air superiority over all of Japan, total naval superiority. The Japanese couldn't build a ship because it would just get bombed into the goddamn harbor. So why did you decide to kill a bunch of civilians? Why were these bombs not used on military targets? It would have made the same statement now, wouldn't it? But they wanted people to behold all of their dead relatives, to exert absolute supremacy over the Japanese. Japan had already been effectively completely defeated by that time. And they still had multiple war fronts to deal with. It wasn't just the United States. Doc Holliday, Dementia Joe gets a stiffy when he gets a sniffy. True. Symbolic belief. Was life before the internet really all that different? Oh, fuck yes. In small town America, I remember when there were manual typewriters, the old type, the tick, 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 at the local store in Woodstock, Vermont, where I was raised in the 90s, prior to the rise of home internet and stuff. It was massively different. I don't know about big cities. Of course, computers had already been used there for some time. There wasn't a free and open internet like the way we have it now, but there was connection. There were email systems and stuff for corporations, universities, military, government. It might not have changed quite so much immediately. In small town America, it was like goddamn night and day. It was something to behold in the Chia Pet era. So yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson telling you, don't worry about nuclear war, everyone. Yeah, you might get killed. You probably would if you're in an urban area, but it wouldn't be really that bad. The fallout would go away eventually. And, you know, they're not as dirty as atomic weapons. No, there'll be more fallout from them. It's just you're talking about the amount of fallout compared with the number of deaths from the original blast. Yes, it's going to be lower. What the fuck kind of positivity is that? Okay, yeah, 10 million people just died. But other people will eventually be able to resettle this area after a couple of years. Steve D. Martin. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, living through the end of Cold War, I never thought we'd come that close to 11:58 p.m. again. Clank. Yeah, I think we're a few milliseconds from midnight at any given point, which is sad. Turpentine T. Hail from Rutland. Oh, hello there. Do you mean Rutland, Vermont? There are other Rutlands in the world. I wonder if they suck as much as my hometown. Next news story. Illegal immigrant charged with barbaric killing and rape of Paris 12-year-old found in box. 24-year-old suspect had been ordered to leave France in August before authorities let her back in the country. Yes, this is a lesbian attack, apparently, on a 12-year-old girl. A 24-year-old woman accused of the horrific murder and rape of a 12-year-old girl whose body was found in a plastic box in Paris last week has been living in the country illegally for several years, a French government official said. The killing of the girl, identified only as Lola Daviet, that's not the real name, of course. European laws with regards to the identity of victims or criminals are different from in the United States, just so people understand, has triggered an intense political debate on President Emmanuel Macron's immigration policies after the country's media reported the 24-year-old suspect was an illegal from Algeria. The suspect in this barbaric act should not have been in our country, Marine Le Pen, head of the far-right National Rally Party, said Tuesday during a heated National Assembly session, demanding that Macron's government put a stop to uncontrolled immigration. The Italians are doing it. Hell, I think the Dutch are doing it at the moment. Why isn't France following suit? This is a 12-year-old gets killed by a woman in her 20s. Apparently, there's a male perp as well that helped bury the body. He's in trouble too. Killing a young girl, and it didn't have to happen. That's the point. None of these crimes need to occur, but they're allowed to occur by weaklings, pathetic weaklings like Emmanuel Macron. Huns with guns. You seen the Darrell Brooks trial? No, I haven't actually. Haven't been paying any attention to it. Stan Vanderact started to post my own ramblings on my channel. Could use some exposure. Clank is love. Clank is life. So Stan Vanderact, I'll pin you up there briefly. You can subscribe to him if you would like. Yeah, Xavier Logistics has a good point. Is this a biological woman that did the attack and raping? An autopsy showed the girl died of cardiorespiratory failure, so getting choked to death, with signs of asphyxia and cervical compression, Paris prosecutors said. The coroner's report also cited wounds to her face, back, and neck, and injuries consistent with sexual assault. So, yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, and we might never know, because, again, the identities of criminals and of victims in Europe they're less public than in the United States. In the U.S., the police know less than the legacy media sometimes within the first hours of a major crime. Totally different in Europe. I don't know which system is better, by the way. Hair Juicer 3000 watched Freaked, Mad Scientist comedy, free on YouTube. Freaked is a very good movie, along with Nothing But Trouble, which is kind of in a similar vein. You should watch both of those, everyone. I did do a top 10 comedy list. We just talked about a 12-year-old getting, raped and killed. So maybe we need some eye cleanser here. I'll go to that before I go to the next news story. Here are my top 10 comedies that I put on my list. And there are some honorable mentions that people did mention, and I'll go through them too. Number one, Young Frankenstein. I think this is the greatest comedy movie ever made. Mel Brooks movie, Gene Wilder in his prime. Excellent. There's nothing that I can say. It's a 10 out of 10 movie, and I don't give that rating lightly. Secondly, Dr. Strangelove, of course, a Kubrick film. It's a dark humor. It is a deeply politically satirical film. I don't know. I love everything about that movie. Another 10 out of 10. 3, Arsenic and Old Lace. This is an older movie. I think it's from the 40s, actually. And it's a Broadway play as well. Excellent. It's hilarious. It's about a pair of old ladies that are poisoning old men to put them out of their misery. They've got a son who is completely off his rocker, or actually a cousin, I believe, who thinks he's Theodore Roosevelt. Everything about the movie is great. Number 4, Kung Pao Enter the Fist. This is the most underrated comedy movie and one of the most underrated movies in general of all time. A lot of the critics completely hated it. A lot of the audience didn't like it apparently either. I consider it the ultimate cult classic. And Odenkirk should be granted the ability by his studio to make the other parts of what was originally meant to be a trilogy. I don't understand how anyone can watch the goddamn movie and not find it funny. Subject material is hilarious. The acting's hilarious. The cheap puns are hilarious. Kung Pao is amazing. Number 5, Hocus Pocus, actually. Not a full-on comedy, but it's become almost self-deprecating at some point as a 90s campy sub-B movie. By the way, the new Hocus Pocus I refuse to watch because there's no Omri Katz. To be clear, it's not actually Hocus Pocus at all. Some people describing it as a Walgreens ad for an hour and a half. I can believe it. Number 6, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because can it be a top 10 list without Monty Python being mentioned at least once? Most people would disagree with that premise, so I'm giving ground on that one. It is a very good movie. It's hilarious. Number 7, Blazing Saddles. This one usually gets put ahead of Young Frankenstein. I like Young Frankenstein more, but Blazing Saddles is also hilarious. Another Mel Brooks movie, by the way. Mel Brooks, one of the greatest names in comedy. Number 8, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. This has Don Knotts, who played actually the deputy on the Andy Griffith Show. He left. He made, I can't remember, it was called the Fantastic Mr. Limpet, I think it was, partially cartoon movie. And then he did The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, which, because of its horror theme, I preferred more. Watched it as a kid, thought it was great. Number 9, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because no list of the top 10 comedy movies would be complete without Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I was banned from watching this by my mother when I was a kid because I kept imitating Pee-wee Herman because I found it so funny. I spent 3 years not being able to watch the goddamn rip-off VHS tape that she had made of Pee-wee Herman. I was very sad about that. I was antagonizing my friends in elementary school with my Pee-wee Herman impression. And number 10, Abbott and Costello in the Foreign Legion. You can add to this honorary mention for virtually any Abbott and Costello movie. The Mummy, The Invisible Man, Frankenstein, Dracula. They did a huge number of movies back in their day. It was mentioned to me Fifth Element should be definitely an honorable mention. So should Space Truckers, by the way. Similar vein of slapstick space comedy. I liked it. I think people liked it less than Fifth Element, and others as well. Yes, History of the World Part 1 would definitely be one of the movies that I'd give an honorary mention to. But I had to parse it down for a top 10 list. I had no choice. We're being uplifting at the moment. Yeah, but Freaked, I'd give Freaked an honorable mention. Freaked is a good movie as well. Sebastian Monroe, there's a Rutland, Wisconsin. A quick wiki search shows a town hall and an old United Brethren church. Population under 2K. Closest city is the capital, Madison. Yeah, I think I would like Rutland, Vermont better. At least there you've got a 5-digit population total. You know, I do need a good gardening center. The Spence Fencer. I miss typewriters and encyclopedia sets. 80s better. And 90s, really. I mean, even in the late 90s, it was like that unless you were in the upper middle class or above. I didn't get home internet until 2007, so Vermont's a little bit behind the curve when it comes to tech. Merrick Grimaldes, read on Bloomberg, 25 days left of diesel. Lol. Oh, I'll have to look at that. Huns with guns. Daryl is representing himself as a lawyer, and he literally wants to call the state of Wisconsin to the stand. Well, they can have someone represent the state of Wisconsin on the stand, potentially, yeah. Tom McMorrow, DNC panic is palpable. Bitches be chuffin'. We'll be getting to the midterm panic of the Democratic Party. It's palpable, yeah. Albert Hurt, Blazing Saddles is an 11 out of 10 then. I did like Blazing Saddles, and to everyone mentioning Spaceballs, I was not a fan of that movie. There were funny moments, but it's not in the same goddamn league as Blazing Saddles or certainly Young Frankenstein. It's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it per se. It's funny. It's just the pacing and the kind of slapstick is it's not quite there for me. Lapse of apathy. I watched Everything Everywhere all the same time after eating a THC edible. It was amazing. Just don't do it too many times. Roscoe P. Coltrane, we need green energy weapons, tactical windmills, and solar-powered rifles. Well, you can get an energy rifle. You can already take high-powered lasers and blind a person at 100 yards with them. You could charge it up with a solar cell if you wanted. Fuse 32, thank you for your service to sanity. Clank on. Caleb Barbour, do you look at RCP's adjusted averages regards to past errors? Those have Oz and Dixon ahead and Masters down by just half a point and New Hampshire Senate tied. I don't. And the problem with that methodology is the same as Karl Rove's methodology and numerous Dem pollsters, including the nerds under Nate Silver. Attempting to adjust the outcome of an election based on prior results is very, very, very dangerous. You don't know that you're going to have the same result. You could underestimate, you could overestimate. I don't look at that. I just look at the polling aggregates. Although I am willing to adjust my expectation for GOP outperformance at this time. I think it'll be 3 and not 2 points, which is in line roughly with the generic ballot. And oh boy, by the way, that does mean a big-ass red wave election, especially in the House. Motherfucking Damien, Neo, Sporin, yeah, I remember that part from the movie. I can almost recite entire lines from Kung Pao verbatim. I don't know how many times I've watched it. Hustle, muscle, Gias, did Sleazy Ven crack to Mike Lindell? I haven't asked him. We did confirm that he didn't sell it to Hunter Biden, though. Colin Madden, incredible Mr. Limpid. I wish I was a fish. Classic. Yeah, good movie. Not as good as Ghost and Mr. Chicken, though. Ozzy's Robots, Hey Sticks, 34 clankers away from 1K. Maybe you can throw this up. For comedies, how about Trading Places and Kentucky Fried Movie? I've never heard of the latter. I don't know that I saw Trading Places. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know. I tend to like most comedy movies that I encounter. I think a life is full of sadness and shit like that and darkness anyway, so it's sort of like a release. I just want to see something funny or like sword and sorcery. Yeah. Kilroy was here. I sent this before, not sure if it went through. Didn't Neil Tyson get caught fabricating statistics and arguments? I seem to remember Razorfist reaming him in a video over this. Clank. I do recall that. I don't know the sum and substance of the claim, but I believe he did, yeah. Probably about climate change. Stephen Nizick, was Ernest P. Worrell funny, or did he try too hard at being funny? Don't know. Sebastian Monroe, I'll represent Wisconsin. Send Daryl Brooks to Detroit. Yeah. Colin Madden, History of the World is my favorite Brooks. It was an underrated movie. It gets middling reviews generally. I thought it was almost as funny as Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles. I leave it off of the top 10 list because there are other movies that are more clearly funnier. It would get an honorary mention, though, definitely. Especially the part with the eunuchs and stuff. One of the characters has infiltrated a palace, and they're trying to, I think, get some people out of jail. He poses as a eunuch, so they have the chick come out and do like a really lurid dance in front of the eunuchs. And the line was, if I remember correctly, she goes in front of the first eunuch, and she dances around. He just stands there. They say, okay, he's a eunuch. Then they go to the second dude, and she dances around. He just stands there. Okay, he's a eunuch too. They go to the third dude, and she dances around even more voluptuously. And then they say, well, he's dead. And then they go to the fourth dude, who, of course, is not a eunuch. And he's got his feather duster over his cock in the movie. And after she's done dancing, you see one of the feathers lifting up, in the same insinuating he got an erection. I thought that was funny. I like when they're coming out of the Senate and they're trying to blend in with like philosophers and politicians, and they're walking along mumbling bullshit, and stuff like that. It was good. Caveman Resell. I was demonetized on YouTube a little over a year ago, but now I'm making money on Rumble. Thanks for all your hard work and spreading knowledge. Well, thank you, and congrats. Mr. Sandwich. I Sticks, haven't watched a stream in a bit, but I have finished moving into my first house. Looking forward to the midterm stream. Clank, clank. Congrats on getting a home. Melinda de los Santos, $9.99. No comment. Thank you very much. Is that Los Santos like in GTA? One of the greatest games, by the way, San Andreas. I think you sent that twice, by the way. Yeah, you sent me $9.99. You did it twice somehow. You could probably get the second one back. Salty Keldion, check your Twitter DM. Your interactions with Karlin Borisenko reminded me of the Trollface origin comic, edited with more attention than she's worth. Yeah, I'm not going to say much about that because, I'm not going to just fucking spend my whole life entertaining an obsessive person. That being said, reminds me a little bit of Wimplo from Kung Pao Enter the Fist, who purposely gets trained wrong as a joke and so thinks that losing is winning. Basically, synonymous. Sparky, new audiences haven't seen the original Frankenstein or even the Abbott and Costello one, so they don't fully get young Frankenstein. Too bad, because it's great. They're all great. John Andrew, attaboy, Luther. Frau Bluka. Yes, Frau Bluka, one of the greatest scenes from the movie. By the way, the dude that played the Sergeant at Arms in that movie voiced Grandpa Longneck in what was it called? The Land Before Time, the cartoon, you know, with Littlefoot and Ducky and shit. By the way, if you want to be sad again, you can look up what happened to the actress that voiced Ducky. You probably shouldn't do that if you want to have a good day, because it's definitely not one of the most fun things in the world. Drennan, could you rate all the Mel Brooks films for us? No, because I haven't watched them all. I would say Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles obviously stand out. History of the World Part 1. Not a fan of Spaceballs. Decent, but not on the same order. Mel Brooks at his funniest, if he's got the right cast and idea, knocks it out of the park. Otherwise, it's just middling. It's watchable. There's nothing wrong about Spaceballs. It's just I never was into it much. Al-Qaeda, would you debate PPP on obesity if you could? Who? I don't know who PPP is. Hair Juicer 3000, Stroyo Pyro on YouTube for energy weapons. He's 100 miles away from me, which is too damn close for comfort. Yeah. I want a laser rifle. A big one. Symbolic Belief, what would your career be if the internet never happened? Living under a bridge, and I'm not really joking about that. I don't think that I could take a normal societal role. I have too much social anxiety. I guess I'd be on disability living in Section 8 or some shit. Over on Rumble, Cam2425IA. Sticks, did you hear about the Australian bank tying carbon footprint to their customers' purchases? Social credit score beta test. I did hear about that, yes. And condemn it, of course. Naturally. We also have Jenk Uger's Sweaty Gunt. There's two sides to every story, he says. On one side, Daryl Brooks ran over a parade full of kids. On the other, yeah, I don't know exactly what the other side is. I think he's going for an insanity defense. Canola Watcher on 63. Do you think anything will ever come of the European Parliament members investigating Pfizer and Moderna after it came out that something that I can't mention on YouTube occurred, even though it's true? No, I don't think anything will come of it because they're not European companies. They might find them negligent. It won't mean anything. Javanus Medaus, Mars Attack surely deserves an honorable mention. That was a funny movie. I don't know that it's top 10 material, though. Bara, Night Shift in 1982 with Michael Keaton was a great movie. Keaton worked in a morgue and was convinced to run a prostitution ring out of the morgue. I've definitely heard of it. I'm not 100% sure that I've watched it, though. Now we have the next. Oh, yes, Robin Hood Men in Tights by Colin Madden. That would get an honorable mention. That was funny. Next news story, Ethan Klein got a temporary suspension on YouTube, and he's blaming all of the usual parties, even though other parties were involved with this. Explicitly, if you're talking about Ben Shapiro. A few white supremacists successfully lobbied YouTube to suspend me. Ben Shapiro is now, according to Ethan Klein, a white supremacist, by the way, just to be clear about the trajectory of his career. A Jewish dual citizen of Israel and USA for anti-Semitism. Yes, because you openly proclaimed, and I'm not a Ben Shapiro simp in any way, shape, or form. I don't really like Ben Shapiro. I don't consider him principled. I consider him to be overly antagonistic. I have problems with Ben Shapiro, intelligence aside, because he's clearly got it. I'm not a fan of his work. I see him as like missing link content creation. You literally and explicitly stated that you hoped he'd be put in a gas chamber, Ethan. Just to be clear about why you got this strike on your account. You made your bed, lie in it. You also, by the way, for years you've been crowing about censorship. Jordan Peterson and others talking about how important it is to silence certain individuals for their beliefs. And now you're bitching and whining and complaining about the fact that it's a double-edged sword. Yes, when tech firms wield the capability of banning people for topical political views that are not themselves credible threats or defamatory or anything, no shit, it can affect people on the left as well as on the right. By the way, who could have possibly tried to warn leftoids of this up to 5 fucking years ago? Is it Styx Hexenhammer? Yeah, it is. Go back through my goddamn videos if you don't believe me. By the way, I do oppose the banning of his account. It's a temp ban, as I think it's 2 weeks or something. You can't upload, or a month or something. I do oppose it. I don't think that anyone should face that unless it's something that's legally actionable. That being said, you do promote that sort of censorship. You did make a statement to Ben Shapiro that indicated that you hoped that he would die. Other people jumped in. They dogpiled you for hypocrisy and for violating the TOS that you want to see extended in the first place. It'd be funny if Ethan Klein responded by getting on Rumble. Yes, H3 podcast ends up on Rumble and BitChute and shit like that because everywhere else they ban him for going after Ben Shapiro. And it's funny, if you're going to hide behind the fact that you happen to be Jewish to excuse what you said, doesn't that mean that Ben Shapiro can hide behind his own Jewishness because he is Jewish for his criticism of you and for his antagonism, as you would proclaim it, towards him? Why can't he do the same thing? It's only you. You're allowed to do it because you're progressive or something. You can say whatever you want. Nobody should ever have a problem with it. As soon as somebody else says something, it's a big problem. E100 Omega 123, get your kitties some treats on me. Do you think Italy will withdraw support of NATO and or Ukraine? No. Meloni has made it clear she supports both. Aaron Bennett, I imagine that when the red tsunami comes, that the Dems will double down like they always do. Bet a future red super chat on it. I will take that bet. I think it depends on the proportion of loss. If you get a real red wave, like 40 fucking House seats, a couple Senate slots, 3 or more gubernatorial, I think that depending on the races they lose, keep an eye on New York and Pennsylvania, by the way, they might finally do the soul searching that's now 20 years overdue. You would be correct, though, if that doesn't happen. If it's just a regular red wave, GOP wins 30 House seats, is pretty decent. They take the Senate by a seat or break even. They take a couple gubernatorial slots. Yes, they will refuse to do any soul searching. They'll double down. They'll blame Biden mainly. They'll throw him under the bus because it's convenient. They don't expect him to run in 24 anyway, so it doesn't matter. Sparky, new audiences have a primitive sense of humor, if they have one at all. That's why they rate Spaceballs too high. I don't know. I think it got tied in with Star Wars because it's a satire of Star Wars. So naturally, a lot of people watched it. So there's like a cult following for it. I just didn't find it as funny as Young Frankenstein. Louis Andrade, if Mastriano loses the governor race, that means the Dems win Pennsylvania in 24 and the White House. Tell me I'm wrong. You're wrong. That doesn't mean that they win the White House. That is one state out of many. Look at the polls out of Arizona. Next news story, John Fetterman's going to appear with you today in Pennsylvania, but there haven't been that many candidates campaigning with you. This was a question for Biden the other day. By the way, this was repeated several times when he was appearing with Fetterman. Fetterman, who not only did not speak, but did not answer any questions and literally just stood there the entire time. I analyzed this morning why this is the case. It was an optics win for John Fetterman. Just trust me. Whether he wins or not is a different issue, but it was an optics win because Biden went off the rails. Fetterman knew that he would. And then it contrasts. Fetterman just stood there. He didn't make any verbal errors because he made no verbalizations. For one glowing moment, John Fetterman was the coherent one on the stage. That's all he needed. That's all he wanted. Biden, by the way, should feel backstabbed by John Fetterman in this encounter. Biden then rambled again several times. This was not the only encounter in which he was questioned about this. Biden grabbing the reporter. That's not true. There have been 15. Count, kid, count. 15 whole people have asked Joe Biden to campaign with them. 15. Do you know how many people are up for re-election just in the Senate? Plus, you've got gubernatorial races, major mayoral candidates, important down ballot seats, judges in some cases, sheriffs and shit. 15 people have asked Joe Biden to show up for their rallies. Dude, Bernie Sanders can pull that in a goddamn weekend. Bernie, Obama, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, fucking AOC is more in demand right now than Joe Biden. By the way, I wonder if this will have any down ballot effect whatsoever. This is great. I'm loving this so much. I'm almost like bursting out laughing, watching it over and over again, seeing how crazy he is. 15 whole people, kid. Can't you count? Apparently, the only thing Joe Biden counts is the number of milliliters of Forlax that he has to put in his prune smoothie in order to have a bowel movement in the morning. Let's see. Holy shit. Sebastian Monroe. Ethan usually has Susan Wolhunky in touch to get out of things like this. True, he's a personal friend of the CEO of YouTube. Still, we all tried to warn them. They reap what they sow. Now is the harvest. Yeah, the breadliners have a problem with this too, showing an astonishing lack of self-awareness, by the way. So yeah, Fetterman wins, actually, in this. Biden loses. Fetterman wins. He was the sane person on the stage by simply shutting the fuck up and letting Biden do his thing on 3 different occasions in the same 24-hour period. This dude is probably not going to serve his entire full term. When I made that estimation at the beginning of his presidency, it may have originally been a joke. It's not a fucking joke anymore. Take it seriously when I say that. That's an official prediction. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance that Joe Biden ends up getting 25th or resigning before serving out his term. Sheriffs and shit, even we're campaigning right now. True. Sparky, don't be fooled by the last 15 years of NATO-sponsored anti-Putin propaganda. MSM gave him the Trump treatment long before Trump got it. Bad things are hoaxes. Putin's actually a righteous man. I don't consider him righteous. I consider him war-happy and imperialistic the same way I do most NATO leaders. This is not an either-or situation. Next, we have some new polling right now. Whitmer's only ahead by 2 over Dixon, supposedly, according to the Mitchell report, by the way. In Texas, Abbott has broken into the double-digit range, by the way. Latest poll showing him up by 11. He is approaching 9 points in the goddamn aggregate over Beto O'Rourke. I hold to what I said on the Sleazy stream. I think that of those 3 gubernatorial slots, Abbott comes in by the largest margin, then Kemp, and then DeSantis in number 3. They all get reelected by more than 5. I think Abbott has clinched. He's moved into the double-digit range. I don't think that there's any question he's going to get reelected. By the way, we will talk about the generic vote and Biden's approval. Joe Biden's approval gap is now reapproaching 12 points. His disapproval has gone up. His approval appears to have been stabilized more or less. If he hits 12 points, that's the gap between disapproval and approval by election day, then it's a virtually certain red wave. Even if it was, between 8 and 12, it'd be like a 99% chance. He's moving in the wrong direction, and he's doing it at exactly the wrong time for the Democrats to recoup any losses. I think that this is going to end up tilting, in my opinion, several of the close races in the Republicans' favor. Pennsylvania may very well be one of them. But we've also got to check out the generic congressional ballot. I'm looking at several indicators. First, the GOP is now up by 3.4 in the aggregate for the generic. That's number 1. Secondly, they have a registry advantage. And third, they almost have an advantage in early voting. If I put all 3 of these pieces of evidence together and then look at the historical trend of midterm elections based on presidential approval, I have a 4 out of 4 to guess that the GOP may outperform by 10 or more points. This would not be a red wave. It would not be a red tsunami. It would be an apocalypse for the Democratic Party. I'm just not willing to guesstimate that happens. I am willing to say that I'm going to fall in line, though, with the generic ballot and imagine that the GOP outperforms by roughly 3 points. If that happens, you might have a 40-seat pickup in the House. You might get 2, maybe even a 3rd Senate pickup. You might get 4 gubernatorial slots. That alone is a goddamn slaughter. I'm looking at the recent polls here. There is literally only one poll, and it's Politico, so take it with a grain of salt, that shows the Democrats up at all. Every other poll has the GOP up right now for the generic ballot. With Emerson coming in, it's 0.3 higher than it was literally this morning when I started making my early recordings. I think the GOP has won in the midterms. I do not believe that any level of honking is going to be able to stop it because there aren't enough House races in fortified states, I think, to make up for that difference. The GOP does not need to win any of the toss-up House seats in order to take the House by 3 or 4 seats. Not one. They don't have to win any of them. They can take back the House with literally every toss-up seat, all 34 of them going to the Democrats, which won't happen, by the way. It's more likely to be close to a 50-50. If anything, it probably leans in the GOP's favor. They could pick up 40 seats easily. It's not even difficult. The math is there. Meanwhile, the math is probably not there for the Democrats to be able, certainly not to hold the House. Certainly not to stanch the bleeding with regards to gubernatorial slots. Their best hope is in the Senate. And if you have a 50-50 Senate, you still have the filibuster to worry about. All you can get is judicial nominees appointed. E100 Omega 123, have you noticed an increase in articles talking about how white supremacy is an issue in the Hispanic community? Yes, and that's not coincidental. I'm going to talk about that probably tomorrow. It's entirely the result of Hispanics becoming more conservative because a larger bulk of them were born in the United States as opposed to being first gen. They're becoming more conservative because they're making more money, opening businesses, raising children, etc. And this goddamn terrifies the id pol left. So naturally, they're going to try to get light-skinned and dark-skinned Hispanics to fight one another. Because racism and bigotry really is the name of the game of the far left. They have to split people apart in order to exert control, because otherwise, if people have a civic awareness that says, hey, I'm not going to hate someone because of the color of their skin or their genitals or something. If they can't crack people apart, the left always loses. They've realized this over their 100-year string of failures in North American politics. Darth Jason, hey Sticks, I talked to Adam Krigler yesterday and he said he'd love to do your midterm stream. He wants you to DM him on Twitter. Okay, I'll DM him. Yeah, he can come aboard as a guest on the midterm stream. President-elect Pressure 609, I vote Fetterman to be the next Rob Zombie super beast. Yeah, he'd make a good Frankenstein. He should go into acting. Frankenstein, what are his lines? Okay, he can do that. Give him $1 million. Distract him from politics. Give him something better to do. Desiccated Corpse, what will you be doing if or once the nukes drop? Well, I'm in a city too small to be a nuclear target, so I'll probably see Amsterdam roasting off in the distance, assuming that I'm in this continent when the bombs drop. If I'm in Rutland, no problem. Nobody's going to nuke Rutland. Why the fuck would you bother? And then I'll scavenge the wasteland. I guess I'll be the next Three Dog, because this is sort of my job anyway, talking to people online. I'll set up a radio broadcast on shortwave, and then I'll play all the hits of the 50s. I will play the Fallout 4 soundtrack over and over again, just as a joke. Sticks' other shirts. Yo, Sticks, have you forgot that we exist too? Yeah, I like this shirt, though. Don't worry, I do launder it in between wearings, more or less. Sparky, Gene Wilder was awesome. Won't be another like him. Yeah, that dude had a sad life, by the way, with regards to romance. He did actually fuck the chick that played his love interest in Young Frankenstein, though. He was actually dating her for some time. So keep that in mind when you watch their film dynamic, that they were banging at the time. It's sort of like when Han Solo and Princess Leia were literally banging each other. Can you imagine being Mark Hamill? Oh boy, you got passed over big time. Miguel Barrera, thoughts on Matt Walsh and his whole animation is either satanic or it being something adults shouldn't enjoy. I don't know anything about that, so I can't weigh in. Crazy Loon, I am convinced Sticks is the Chia Pet target market. Just Sticks, no one else. My mom had several Chia Pets. They're all right. Sunshine Girl, Fetterman for Igor. Yeah, no, he'd be the monster because he's built like a brick shithouse. Casey Bengry, I predict Tudor Dixon wins the governorship in Michigan. Possible. I said this a month ago. I travel Michigan on a regular basis for work. Dixon signs everywhere. Only my governor is an idiot for Whitmer. The problem is I believe that it's still semi-fortified there. Next news story, Liz Truss standing down. I'm not going to say much more about it. I put it in there, but of course, everything about that was exhausted yesterday. But what I would like to say is that Boris Johnson is now standing for the position that he left for Liz Truss to take up. Yeah, Boris Johnson might end up prime minister again, feasibly in the UK, because Liz Truss was such a fucking disaster. Wouldn't that be goddamn funny? I hope it happens too. I hope they pass over that Sumac guy or whatever the fuck his name is. Sumac, I don't remember. Pass him over and get Boris Johnson back in there so that all of the soccer hooligans can riot some more. Oh my God, that'd be so funny. I'm back. Can you imagine his sloganeering for the subsequent general election? Cenk Uyghur's sweaty gun. Fetterman in a suit looks like Wilson Fisk getting high on his own supply. People were comparing him to the deformed dude from the Goonies. Knoll Watcher 63. I thought that question might affect your YouTube. That's why I asked it on Rumble. YouTube is Sticks, thanks for your videos. We enjoy them very much. Yes, I'll address that issue separately with regards to a new tech exclusive in the near future. Don't worry. Ozzy's Robots, more honorable mentions. The Jerk, Caddyshack, Airplane. Airplane's good. Animal House, I liked that. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Tommy Boy, Back to School. Biden's Presidency. That's definitely a dark comedy in the vein of Dr. Strangelove. Bara, did you see Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder? No, I have not. Censored, Uncle Fetterman. Yeah, he looks a little bit like that too. Mostly he looks like Frankenstein though. He looks like a refrigerator lumbering around. The Southern V. Sticks, you need to play some rap during the apocalypse. Yeah, it'll be a mortal technique, that's for sure. And the Ghetto Boys, all the good shit. Not that pussy rap that they put on the radio. The real shit. Stephen 13, in the Cowboys versus Eagles game, the fans booed Jill Biden. It was the only good thing Eagles fans did, lol. I'm a Dallas fan. I thought that was a meme. I couldn't find any corroboration of the original clip being real. E100 Omega 123, how are the Dutch farm protests going? They have slagged off some now, but you never know. Next news story, police issue warning ahead of Halloween after fentanyl pills found in candy bags at LAX. Yes, the GOP / moral majority people are doing it again, claiming that your kids are going to get high this Halloween because crazy people are going to put drugs in their candy bags. When I was a kid, all you get was razor blade apples or maybe an AIDS needle segment. You know, you got AIDS or, cut up your mouth real good. Now they're giving out fucking painkillers to kids. I think that I got gypped back as a millennial. We've seen these moral panics over and over. LSD, fentanyl now, ecstasy was a big one. Inhalants, handing out whippets to the kids. You're going to get pornographic literature and witchy shit that's going to make your kid into a Satan worshiper. They'll put some cursed object in the bag or something. I've heard it all, dude. I'm only 34. I've literally heard all of this shit just in my lifespan with regards to Halloween. Here's the thing. The most dangerous thing that your kid's going to come home with on Halloween is the candy. It's going to fuck their teeth up. You shouldn't eat candy at all. You should never eat refined sugar whenever possible. If you have to sweeten something, use a little honey or something like that. Never buy refined sugar unless you're deacidifying some tomato sauce or something. Even then, you can use carrot juice or something. The candy is going to fuck them up way worse than the fentanyl would. Hell, probably the fentanyl's more healthy for them than the goddamn Snickers bar. Maybe they have a peanut allergy. The fentanyl might not kill them, but the Snickers bar probably will. Oh shit, little Jimmy with the peanut allergy, he ate a whole sleeve of Reese's. Well, I guess we have to go and pick up another kid at the orphanage this year. The fact is that 99.9999 goddamn percent of the kids, they go out on Halloween. They're going out in relatively safe areas. People don't go trick-or-treating in the ghetto. They're going to get candy. And the weird neighbor will give them fruit or something or a Bible pamphlet telling them to repent for their sins, which must be the funniest part of Halloween in certain parts of the country. They're not going to be getting fentanyl because if a person is dealing fentanyl, they want to make money. That's the whole point. And little kids, what do they generally not have? They don't have jobs. Why the hell would you give a little kid free fentanyl? Why the hell? What's the fucking purpose? Number one, you end up doing the rest of your life in Fed for attempted murder, potentially, or literal murder. Secondly, you've just lost the $5-10 that you could have gotten off the fentanyl that you gave them. Fuck that shit. These freeloaders don't deserve your fentanyl. You're not going to give it to them. They used to say this about crack, that people were going to give crack to little kids. No, but what are they going to smoke it in? They don't have a crack pipe. Did they give a free crack pipe out too? I never saw that back in the 1990s. God, I was told that I was going to get shit tons of drugs. People would come up to me, and in order to get me addicted, they'd give me marijuana first. And then once I was their friend, they would give me crack and heroin and all of these other things. I never got any free drugs, other than getting smoked out a couple times in college. I did that too for people. I was the reciprocal weed smoker. I was not the stingy one that was always dry when you asked for a bowl. Just to be clear, as a libertarian, I wanted people to know that. I believe in reciprocity still. You're more likely to end up with a situation where the things, if your kids go out trick-or-treating, I don't know why you'd bother at this point because candy's not good for them. The weirdest thing they're likely to get is a Bible tract or a pear from the elderly neighbor. They're not going to get fentanyl. You'll probably see 2 or 3 cases in the whole goddamn country of this, and people will blow up and say that it's a national nightmare. Desiccated Corpse, I'm going to give kids hormone pills for Halloween. That would probably be legal in a lot of states. It's the sad part. JWT6577. I've always loved the movie Better Off Dead. It was like an absurd John Hughes movie. Hunter Wadley, to John Cooper's Twitter post, you replied 10, just like a negative 10, just like me. Nice. Yeah, that was good. Dave MCL, holy crap, it's been 7 years following you. I've lasted longer with you than any girlfriend. Lol, keep on rocking, man. Well, you chose the right loyalty. Keep rocking for 7 more fucking years. No worries there. Plenty more content every single day. And you don't have to worry about me spurging out at you for your meal choices or something. I won't lecture you on cleaning your room, although you probably should anyway. I like things relatively tidy. I like a little bit of ordered disorder around me with regards to decor. Some plants, some dirt everywhere, that's okay, as long as it's, it's not on your eating surface. Not a germaphobe. Another reason I'm not Razor Fist. Next news story. Howard Stern says Kanye West is like Hitler, and his mental state is no excuse. I'd just like to point out how funny this is, because Howard Stern repeatedly wore blackface back in the 90s. And, used to throw pieces of bologna and sliced chicken at hookers' asses and have lesbians riding vibrators and stuff like that. But he's seen the light now. He's woke now because he's got a long-term uncancelable contract, so he's massively wealthy. It's very funny to see him compare Kanye West to Adolf Hitler. I think this might be slightly hyperbolic. I wonder what other people think about this. To be clear, I'll weigh in on my thoughts on Howard Stern briefly. I think that Howard Stern is talented, but that he's gotten lazy, and it's really unfortunate, because if you look at the Howard Stern show from the 90s or the 2000s, it's legendary. I've watched hundreds of hours of that shit, and it's all comedy gold, and good musical choices with the DJing too, generally speaking. He goes to Sirius, though, he becomes uncancelable effectively at that time. And the problem is there was no mountain left to climb, and I guess he just decided to get out of the trenches, which is something that he referred to over and over for 20 fucking years in radio, and he got soft. I do not blame him, by the way, for firing Artie Lang. To be clear, he was completely imploding at the time, and I do not understand why Stern gets shit for that. I would have fired him. Dude, Artie Lang was attacking his employees, and he was in his last appearance, he was so drunk he could barely speak. He was just sitting there. There was one moment, you can probably look up the clip. I think it was Dennis Rodman that they were talking to at the time. And he was so goddamn balls to the wall drunk. He had a thermos, I think, or a cup that he was chugging it out of. It was probably whiskey. He was so goddamn drunk, it was hard for him to even sit up. I would have fired him. He was imploding. He was on a death spiral. And his career has continued that trajectory, generally speaking, with him sabotaging literally everything that he's done since then. But Stern is completely wrong here. And it's funny. I mean, he still trends when he weighs in on things. It's like, 2005? I remember seeing the first episode of the Howard Stern show I saw. I was in the hotel in Hampton Beach. I think I was 14 or something. So I shouldn't have been watching this. It was a late night program, of course. And if it was the first time that I had my own hotel room at the beach, like, when you're a little kid, you're in the room with your parents in a different bed. But I had my own room that they'd gotten me. And the Howard Stern show was on. And of course, it was one of those episodes where a stripper gets mostly naked. I thought that was a fun time, by the way, at the time. And it's entertaining. The problem is they don't do the entertaining part anymore. Little Jimmy, why do you always drag me into scary stories? And little Sally, of course. Sparky, France and Germany guaranteed Minsk II agreement. They didn't enforce it. Russia patiently tried diplomacy for years. Bojo derailed peace in March. Yeah, that doesn't mean that you annex a large chunk of your neighboring country. You can intervene without annexing land, just to be clear. Will Kincaid, stop attacking little Jimmy, you monster. Stomach-turning thrush, Napoleon, he can't afford the fun pack. Jack's regret, just got in. Did you discuss Mayor Adams' New York City Project Veritas story? No, I haven't yet. Clank on, he fired the guy, but he won't give first responders jobs back. Hypocrite. By the way, please no more super chats. I've got one more story to get through. We're running up on an hour already. I'm being more verbose today. Yeah, so Stern, he's calling Kanye West basically like Hitler, and it's just, the hyperbole has gotten to him. Next news story actually has to do with Kanye as well. Opinion, the chilling problem with Kanye West's definition of free speech. This is a CNN opinion piece by an associate professor in the Lawrence Herbert School of Communication at Hofstra University. Yes, Kara Alaimo, actually. Talking about how Kanye is wrong. Free speech does not encompass his right to actually speak freely. We've heard this before. By the way, pro tip, there will probably be a major attack piece on BitChute in the coming days or weeks. I got a tip off about this. I won't say where because I don't know if he wants me to tip off about this. So we'll be defending BitChute against that. We had a major hit piece against Rumble a couple of days ago, defending against that. Should probably make an omnibus video about these topics. The idea is that if somebody says something that's beyond the pale, as society would define it, so something generally people in society would oppose, they shouldn't be able to speak at all. It's very dangerous for Kanye West to have a platform. Well, then fuck you. He just bought a platform, Parler specifically. I would point out that it's very funny that these actions benefit billionaires because they can buy platforms like that. You can't, I can't. If we get shafted, we have to use the billionaires' platforms. They're actually taking us and shoving them onto the platforms by people that they claim are depraved. But they're the ones letting us speak freely now, aren't they? BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, places like Subscribestar, Minds.com, things like that, Parler, Getter, etc. Gab.com, Gab. They have live streaming abilities now, I think. Yeah. By the way, as for Rumble stock crashing, the other day, Ambient looks pointing that out. Yeah, that's not a surprise right now. NASDAQ is getting shaky because we're ahead of economic indicators showing the United States plunging into recession. It's not a surprise to me. Rumble did nothing wrong. Rumble is exploding with... How many people are watching me right now in Rumble? Okay, again, it's about 1,400 people. Again, the differential is definitely there. By the way, we've got almost 5,500 cross-platform. Oh, yeah, I should probably point out again, we are on Pixel Planet still helping to repair Greece. So link at the top of chat on YouTube and on both platforms. It is in the description. So you should do that. Yeah, Cam2425IA, there was a hit piece that was claiming they were fucking around with their stock, which turns out to be false. But also, I think it has to do with bad economic news that's impending. The stock market in general is having problems right now. Look at NASDAQ's composite overall. Sparky, there you go with the MSM keyword neighboring again. Don't be an MSM pawn. Well, I mean, Ukraine is a country that is physically neighboring Russia. That's not being an MSM pawn. That's pointing out the truth. Just because the MSM in the Western world lies doesn't mean the Russian MSM doesn't as well. And just because I oppose Biden or people in the US government doesn't mean that I suck the cock of Vladimir Putin. Or Zelensky, for that matter. I think that they should just take Zelensky, who's younger and more built, and Putin, who knows jujitsu, and put him in a goddamn coliseum and let them attack each other until only one's left alive, and then they'll negotiate thereafter. It'd be the most popular broadcast in history. Hell, you could probably pay for the whole war for both sides if you pay-per-viewed that shit. Everyone would watch it. There'd be parties in the middle of Zimbabwe with people with Starlink that would be watching that. Copper Owl, I have a message from Stolas. He says, ooh, Stixie, when will you return to America? I wish to make jelly sandwiches together. It goes on like that. I get the hell of a boss references, by the way. Yeah, if Rumble stock is down, maybe I should buy a bunch of it. I want to buy into the big tech, to the new tech sites. Anyway, I think I'll go offline. We're running up on an hour, and definitely a fun stream. I've got to do a news crawl, and I'm making my famous stuffed shells later. Yes, with triple goddamn cheese. Homemade tomato sauce. Don't be a pussy. Make it yourself. It's not that hard. Sparky, so invasion okay if it's not a neighbor? Well, yeah, no, Russia, yeah, they invaded their neighbor. They invaded Ukraine. What part of that is misunderstood here? I don't have Russia derangement syndrome, but that doesn't mean that I'm pro-Russia either. I oppose war in general. The Ukrainians had not crossed over into Russia's territorial region, and there was no reason. If you wanted to intervene, like do regime change or something, why the hell are you annexing an enormous swath of the country anyway? It just doesn't make any goddamn sense. Anyway, I'm going out now. I've got to prepare for dinner and other things. That's about all. Peace out.